Hello listeners and watchers, because we're now on YouTube under the channel Men Don't Talk, so see us on there. It's Andy Peregrine here. On today's episode we've got actor, writer and professional comedian Mr. Kevin Dewsbury talking about when he had a mental breakdown, talking about a bit of comedy, talking about a bit of acting. He's great, really good talker. So this one goes on for about an hour and a half. I think about 30 minutes in. You can skip the first 30 minutes if you don't want to hear so much comedy. But yeah, so in regard to that, we've had some feedback. Like I always say, we are always positive on any feedback we get. So let's have a look at this one. Here we go. So the feedback we've had this week is, it's too long. I don't think I can keep up because it's too long. Do we need to reduce the durations a little bit? It's free and we're saving men all around the world for free. What more do you want?
Welcome everyone. We're live. Paddy, can you introduce our special guest this week?
It'll be a pleasure. Right, see if we can try and read this because obviously I'm not the most educated person. We've got Kevin Dewsbury. Now, Kevin's a comedian, MC, actor, does improv, an impersonator, storytelling, and his comedy is a mixture of observation on daily life and one-liners, and he has a great ability to mimic most accents. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I don't know. There's about 15 here, but the problem is it says like East European, so there's got to be like that's a broad range of accents there.
Unspecific.
Yeah. He did a debut solo show, Insane, based on real life events in the Edinburgh Fringe in 2012, and he could be described as an Edinburgh Fringe veteran. Whose hits also include the underground hit Kev's Comedy Kitchen, which was a parody of a TV cookery show. And this year, now they have to correct me if I'm wrong here, Tuesday Night at the Social Club, which was co-written and starring Chortle Comedy Awards winner Bexy Archer, and this was nominated for a 2020 Leicester Comedy Festival debut show nomination. Is that right?
That's correct. It was. Yeah. We didn't win, unfortunately, but we were very, very pleased with that because the show's not ready.
Wow.
So, not to float our own boat, but we didn't expect that at all because we were still reading off scripts during the show.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like if like the concept of the show, it's like you go into a social club. A northern social club, and I play the host, Pat Bashford, who's like proper northern comic, you know what I mean? And Bexy plays the helpful barmaid, who ends up being far funnier than Pat Bashford. Cherry Ann, she plays, and Pat just gets more bitter and twisted as it goes on. So yeah, we were very, very pleased with that. Nice surprise. Didn't quite win. Sian Davis won, so congrats to her. Who's very, very good.
It's tell you what though, just to be nominated. When I was going through all your stuff, the amount of reviews that you've had have been amazing. And what's it like to have a good review?
Well, you should never let it go to your head. It's weird, really, because like. You never really you can never really let good reviews go to your head because it's always one person's opinion. But obviously, a good review, you're going to be floating on cloud 9 about it. It's just that little pat on the back, that little bit of reassurance that what you're doing is actually hitting home with people. But equally, you can get a terrible review. Someone can see the same show or just see you on an off night or not get what you're doing at all, and it can really get to you. So yeah, it's a weird one because like there are luckily, I've had some good reviews. The problem is that it doesn't sometimes matter what people are saying about you, because, well, as you can probably see now, I'm rubbish at selling myself. So I just think sometimes that if I just put whatever one of my quotes is, I can't think at the moment. If I just put comedy masterpiece on my posters, well, that's it. I'm going to sell out. Doesn't it's not going to happen, you know. So you just got to keep plugging away, really. But it's great. It is great. Obviously, you've got something to say. The only issue is, and this is with all respect to anyone that's ever given me a good review, if the review is from, say, a personal blog, some people aren't going to take it seriously, especially when you're doing things like the Edinburgh Fringe, or you have to actually officially put the review in a certain format. If it comes up like barneyscomedyblog.wordpress.com, you know, 5-star review, it's even though that, like, you're so grateful for that someone said that and it's brilliant, people are going to go, well, but Barney's comedy blog says that, it's not the Guardian, you know. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I'd be quite pleased if he had one saying Paddy was really funny, 5 stars from the wife. I'd be happy with that right now.
What club was that at, though?
Anyone I'm talking to.
You said you won't even give you one, Paddy.
Well, that's another problem.
There we go.
Last little bit now of the write up. So I've put obviously you've been in films. You were in a Scorsese film where you played.
Well, yes.
Are you going to play all this down or big it up? I don't know. You're in the Scorsese film where you played a clown in Hugo.
That's right, yeah.
and the last two, you had 2 credits in films in 2019. Destination Dewsbury and Peter Sheltered Life.
Peter's the character I played, but Sheltered Life's the name of the film, which is actually really topical now because it's actually it's a post-apocalyptic film. But it's not about a virus. It's about it's not particularly about a virus. It's more about it's about terrorism and like the fact that like it's more like World War III and nuclear fallout and like bombs. Like London's been bombed and the only survivors are left in Wales. Funny enough, but it's funny because like I was looking at. I've never seen the completed film of that. But it was great fun. It was filmed. All my scenes were filmed in the bottom of the director's garden because it was done on a budget in his dad's garage, and it was made into like some sort of nuclear bunker. And the makeup artist, he was great. Did all these veins in my face, and my hair was a lot longer because my character was dying in the film, you know, but he was trying to hide it. Yeah. Well, we all know what that's like. No, we're dying. Comedy, but so you know, all I mean is, as good as we are, you know, we've been there as well. We've done Jongleurs Croydon. Well, I have. Once on the way up.
I grew up near Wales, and
say again, mate.
I grew up near Wales, and can I just say that everyone in Wales would be so happy to know that they survived an apocalyptic attack.
Yeah,
honestly, it's like Rod Gilbert always says. Anytime there's a bomb go off, it's like a crater. It's like they always use Wales as a reference point.
Yeah, it's always the size of Wales, isn't it?
Yeah, or the population of Wales, or the size. Yeah.
It was a good job they got. It's a good job they got rid of that toll on the Severn Bridge now as well, isn't it? Because then, if it all does kick off, it's not going to be as much of a queue.
It won't cost us much either.
Yeah. But yeah, just going back to that film, it was brilliant filming that because it was literally in Jake's, the director's dad's garden, and stayed at his house. And his dad was an extraordinary guy. Well, he still is. He's half Irish. What was it now? I think he was half Irish and half Native American. Right? But I know, it's amazing, isn't it? But spent most of his life in Wales, and he had this amazing accent. It was quite bizarre. It was just stuff like, "Hey, have you tried these? These are wasabi peas," and they're called that because they're wasabi flavored. It was funny. Funny guy. But yeah, Scorsese, however,
just drop that one in.
no, because I don't go on about that much because it seems it's a little bit like an Andy Millman story, you know, like David Brent in Extras. Because when I lived in London, I'd signed up to a couple of film extra agencies, and one of them got in touch with me out of the blue because I'd done clowning at drama school. I'd put that on my CV as a skill. And also I think that, you know, well, hopefully I'm naturally funny. So I'm by no means a professional clown. I've not been to I think that I actually referenced this in Tuesday Night Social Club, funny enough, but there's a clowning school in Paris called Le Coq, which, you know, is just funny in itself, isn't it, for obvious reasons. So I'm not a trained clown, but I had clowning on my CV, and I must have been the only person that was available who had clowning on their CV, and I got contacted out of the blue by this background artists agency to say, "Oh, you've done clowning, haven't you? Do you want to be in this film?" I had no idea it was directed by Martin Scorsese, right? So I turned up at Shepperton Studios one day thinking I was turning up for an audition for the part of a clown, and then found out it was a Scorsese film, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? Am I going to be up against all these professional clowns or whatever? And then I get taken down this corridor and I get taken into this area where a guy goes, "Oh yeah, he's in the main artist's costumes." I was like, what? And then I walk in, and then he's just in this massive costume department, and they're measuring me up for the clown costume. So I'd already got the part.
Oh, sweet.
Because I was available. But the bad thing was that was in 2010, and I didn't have an iPhone back then. And I had a shitty sort of Nokia whatever, and I think the only photo of me I took of me on that was probably lost. So you can actually see me if you watch the film. I'm in it for 7 seconds.
That's a good screen time. That's 7 seconds.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know it was me unless you knew it was me. So, you know, I could have just completely made it up, but it definitely happened because I was there. And it was December. It was December 2010, would have been, or 2009. And it was supposed to be like a hot June day in Paris at this big fair. And I was like quite lucky because I was dressed as this clown. But there was all these people like, it was supposed to be like 1920s France, I think. So all the girls especially were wearing these like strappy backless dresses. So every time it was like, okay, cut, all these crew would run on with these, you know, those tin foil things they put around marathon runners.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're putting them all over them to keep them warm. Yeah. But I actually Scorsese was actually stood about 12 feet away from me at one point because Ben Kingsley was the lead actor in that film, who I did actually say hello to. He smiled at me. So, you know, that's nice. Didn't seem to be a prick. And but because we were virtually background artists, you know, we were directed by the second AD or the third AD. For anyone listening who's not aware of the film lingo, that's assistant director. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, Scorsese all of a sudden came on set, and he was about 12 feet away from me talking to Ben Kingsley, giving him some direction. Couldn't hear what he was saying, but I'm stood there dressed like a clown, and I couldn't help thinking, what if I just say, "Hey, Marty, do I look like a clown?" but I didn't.
Yeah.
Probably for good reason.
Still would have been great, but better with an iPhone if he says.
Yeah. Do I look like a funny guy? Anyway, so yeah.
And finally,
Go on. I just wondering, Kev, could you turn your screen to landscape at all? Just because we may put it on YouTube at some point.
Hello.
That's a bit better, yeah. Because all it does is it'll crop it, and you'll just get a massive face if we do it.
Hey, do you know what? Right. Do you know what's been confusing me? I'm just turning around again. Is that all right? Do you know what's been confusing me is I've always shied away from doing Facebook Live, but because of this lockdown malarkey, I ended up doing a Facebook Live thing about a week ago. You know, when it seemed like, oh, no one else is doing this. Oh, everyone's doing it. But Facebook Live, you have to film portrait, don't you?
Oh, dear.
Know that?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So I didn't know that. So I was on this Facebook Live for about 20 minutes and I had no idea that I was sideways on Facebook, looking like someone's dad. You know, I haven't got kids, but you know, I remind myself of either my granddad or someone's dad when it comes to technology. So, like you just saying there, can you turn it landscape? I was like, oh bloody hell!
Yeah.
It's the same. It's not the same as Facebook Live. Anyway, it's all right now.
Go on, Paddy. Finish the intro. 5-point intro. Go.
We start
is
the
the-
intro. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the last one. Of course, I obviously have seen Kev because I've been quite a few times to the Salty Dog, to Kev's comedy night, which is once a month on a Thursday, and it's in Northwich, and it's a really brilliant gig. It's not massive. It's just like a rock pub. They have bands.
Yeah,
and
it's brilliant.
And they have the same regulars, and but the actual acts they have are just top draw, and it's a cracking night. And it was £8 or £5 if you buy it there the next week. It's just really good. I've enjoyed it. There've been some top acts on, and of course the way you are now seems to be exactly the way you are when you're comparing.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Because, cheers for that, Paddy. Yeah, no, it's I'm really, really chuffed with the way that it's worked out at the Salty Dog. So for those, again, if you're listening, the Salty Dog in Northwich, third Thursday of the month after all this lockdown's out of the way, Kev's Comedy Club. It only holds about 60. We have got a capacity, we can actually have up to 100 people in there, but it just gets a bit too... Well, it's bizarre talking about that now, isn't it? Like having 100 people in the room. Well, I mean... That's an Edinburgh show. Having more than 9's a bonus. But yeah, it's great. And what I love about those sort of gigs, it reminds me a little bit of like the Last Laugh in the Lescar in Sheffield on a Thursday, which is a brilliant gig, especially when it's packed. Because those rooms where, back rooms of pubs, whereas this one, the Salty Dog in Northwich, it's actually the whole pub is taken over for that night. It's only a small, rock bar, as you know. But sorry, something happened there. But but yeah, it's a great venue. Is that close knit audience? The audience being so close to each other really, really helps, and hopefully those days will come back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Who are you close to at the minute, Kev? What have you got? A missus and kids at home there, or?
I do have my partner, my fiancée, yes, is in the other room right now. I don't know what she's up to, but she's probably, glad of the peace. Hang on, what are you doing? All right, okay. Said something that, well, I won't say what she said anyway. But
Looking at the Lecoq,
so that's,
I believe.
Yeah. Pardon?
I said Googling Lecoq by any chance?
Yeah, Googling Lecoq, indeed. Yeah.
Just to make sure it is a clowning school.
How are you coping being home alone and all that at the minute then? And it's a very different environment from being a comic and being out and being social.
It is. It's bizarre. I mean, it's a catch-22 because Bexy is my fiancée is Bexy Archer, who I do the show with Tuesday night at Social Club. So we're both comedians, we're both writers, we're both performers. So we're both used to doing that when we're not in the house. But we're also been hankering after time to actually sit down, create and write stuff. So now we've got all this time, which we have been taking advantage of, but then, that novelty wears off sometimes. As a writer, as trying to be creative, you can't just force it. So there's been days where, like, for example, today I've had a rubbish day with enthusiasm. Not now, don't worry. But this morning, it's quite a tough morning. I was completely different as I am now. I just didn't want to do anything, because we've been quite good in the fact that we've been getting up and we've been going for a run. Not that we're massive fitness fanatics, but we're just trying to start taking advantage of this, what you can in this lockdown, that we've started this couch to 5K thing. We've both had different levels of fitness in the past. Like about 18 months ago, I was the fittest I've ever been, but I've let it slide again. And Bexy used to run half marathons. So we're just trying to get that back, really. And that, and exercise, of course, does help. All those endorphins get released, as we're told. So we've been trying to do a bit of that, and then coming back and settling down and writing our own projects, because we're both sort of writing our own sitcom ideas and sketches and things like that. Some that we're working on together. Some we've got our own little projects going. I mean, not that this is nothing like that's been done and dusted. These are things that we're writing for ourselves that hopefully we're going to send out to potential producers and things. But yeah, so I'm working on a sitcom script version of my kitchen show at the moment that I did a few years ago at Edinburgh. So Yeah.
We recorded.
Is it hard working? Sorry, Ben. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, we recorded an interview with Rob Halden the other day.
Oh yeah, I know Rob. Yeah.
He said he knew you well, and he said you'd be a great guest. Obviously.
No, well, thank you, Rob. Yeah, I know Rob through wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I didn't put in. I knew there was something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I've got a very eclectic CV.
Yeah, he writes. He's talking about sitcoms as well. He's
Yeah.
saying for Comedy Central or something.
Yeah, I believe he's done some writing for that, and he's done some Joe writing for Mock the Week and things like that. So yeah.
Where else can we follow you, Kevin? Instagram and all that. We'll do a refresh.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. Yeah, I think it's at Kevin Dewsbury Comedy. We've also got Your Dad's Mum Comedy on Instagram, but I'm on Twitter as well at Kevin Dewsbury, which I don't know. It's a funny one to Twitter, really, because sometimes I'll write a joke and think that's hilarious. I'll put it on Twitter. And whether it's to do with algorithms or whether the joke's crap, it just goes unnoticed. And then
it's algorithms, Kev, because it's the same. I've been writing to Twitter for years.
Who is this algorithm bloke? No,
the rhythm is gonna get you.
But yeah, I've just seen that you've just started following me there, Ben.
Yeah.
I'll follow you back. Cheers, mate.
2 meter distance, lads. 2 meter distance.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine if, right, you had to choose one of the people that you followed on Twitter, and you had to follow them for real, the coronavirus challenge, but you had to keep 2 meters away from them, and then they keep looking around and going, "What are you doing? Just following you? Doing nothing different than normally do."
I think every bloke just thought of yoga pants for some reason. But anyway, moving on.
What?
All right, how have you been coping with the corona, kind of the process, self-isolation, and just kind of, have you been dealing with it mentally and stuff?
Well, yeah, it's up and down, isn't it, really? I mean, we've got to be thankful for the fact that, well, I don't think I'm at risk, but obviously anyone is, because you're hearing in the news, aren't you, occasionally that like some people have caught it, some people have unfortunately died who've not been showing any underlying signs of illnesses. I think I might have had a form of the coronavirus already, actually, at the end of February, before it became popular. I was quite ill with like a bit of I thought just a bit of cold, like cold and flu symptoms, but it did knock me for 6. And actually, funnily enough, because sometimes Bexa goes down to a dad's to work there because she's got a desk. I don't know why I'm telling you that. But sometimes it's easier for her to work. She wants to get away from me, basically, at her dad's. And then I stay here. And funnily enough, it coincided with when I was ill. And I was sort of forced to self-isolate because I was on the phone to Bexa going, I feel absolutely terrible. I don't normally feel that bad. And I was coughing and spluttering. And she kept saying, and it's just when like the news was coming out that like, oh, the UK might be facing lockdown and all this. And she's like, are you sure you're not like got the coronavirus? I was going, no, I'm all right. I'm just, and then just go into a coughing fit. But yeah, I felt bloody awful. But I did. I self-isolated for 4 days, so, and we're all right.
I've been getting my sport fix from Netflix. I don't like Sunderland, but I watch Sunderland till I die.
I've heard about that. It's good, is it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it might not be good if we had football playing every Saturday, but I was watching it because it's football. It's really good, yeah. And now I'm watching a Formula One thing. I'm not sure what it is. Someone said Formula One, anyway. Yeah, that's quite good. Get sport facts from it, so it's good.
I'm about 3 years behind. I've not watched Tiger King yet. I've just finished today Making a Murderer. About 4 years behind. But yeah.
Is that a bit like Build a Bear?
Yeah.
It's also nothing we didn't suspect, Andy.
You want to watch Breaking Bad? That's pretty good, mate.
Yeah. I watched that in 2013, was it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
You should
Never
go
watched it.
It's not as good as The Wire. I've had this conversation with so many people. Right, there's listeners right now that are probably looking out for things to watch. It's a good little. We'll get into the main segment in a minute, but I think that's a good little conversation. So for me, my vote would be, if anyone at home now is struggling for a bit of TV, the only program to watch for me, my vote is The Wire. And if I don't know if other people have seen it, Dalu's nodding his head at least.
Yeah,
But for me, it's The Wire.
is awesome. Yeah, absolutely awesome. But again, Breaking Bad's up there. Game of Thrones.
Hello,
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah.
It's good.
Hello. No,
Did you say hello?
No,
Yeah.
no, I was talking about the comedy from the 80s, 90s. Or
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, talking of comedy,
Oh, just said hello.
talking of comedy, has anyone seen Kim's Convenience?
No.
Oh.
That's on Netflix. Thoroughly recommend it. Kim's Convenience.
Kim's Convenience.
Yeah,
Let's get that written down.
Yeah.
It's convenient. Is that your vote then, Kim?
yeah, that's my vote. Yeah, well, because I used to have Netflix, and then I sort of steered away from it because I thought, well, I've watched everything, but this was like 5 years ago, and then like, oh, it's $5.99 a month or whatever, because I'm proper northern. But then obviously we succumbed to it about 3 days ago, and then over the space of 2 days just watched the whole of Tiger King, and then we discovered that Kim's Convenience is on there, which it's a great sitcom. It's without giving anything away, it's set in Canada, but it's about a Korean family that own a convenience store. But it's it's great. The comedy timing and the comedy performances, and I'm not always a big fan of comedies, because like working in comedy, I don't watch comedy in my spare time. I prefer to watch other stuff. But yeah, it's great. It's really good performances. It's probably not a weak link in the cast, and it's just really, really clever, the writing, without giving anything away. So,
what's your inner voice when you finish, say, like a really good gig or whatever? Do you, the real Kev underneath there, you're in the dressing room, everything's gone great, banging gig. Is your inner voice kind of like, oh, I might get found out next time? Or is it actually your inner voice, I'm going to fucking smash the next one then? I'm going to fucking...
It's a cliche, this, but it's true. You are only as good as your last gig. Because if you come off stage and you've had an absolutely amazing gig and you feel on top of the world, you can take that confidence into the next gig. But I don't know whether obviously everyone who's going to listen to this listen to every single podcast. Hopefully they have. But as Mick was saying in the previous podcast, in fact, I forgot what he said. I distracted myself then. I had to do a Mick Ferry impression. No. Yeah, all right, Mick Ferry. No. I really can't remember what the hell I was saying. What was the question?
You're only as good. You were talking about you're only as good as your last gig.
Yeah. So like you can, and then you can convince yourself. It's again like I sometimes analyze it in the same way as a football team. That like if you go on a losing streak, it's hard to get out of it. So if you're having a shit time of comedy and you're not in the right mindset as well, maybe have a break from comedy, do something else. Not that a Premier League footballer can do that. Well, sometimes they can if they're injured, but but if it's momentum, isn't it? Like that night again, like I was mentioning, those 2 gigs I did recently on Brexit night. Both gigs were brilliant, but then like the next day, when the next day comes, it's sometimes hard to take that. That's what Mick was talking about, gig fitness.
Oh yeah,
that was it.
I remember that. Yeah,
gig fitness. Yeah. So talking about being match fit. So the more gigs you're doing, although I've got a funny story about that. Well, it wasn't funny at the time. The more gigs you're doing, the more match fit you are. So you can take that momentum into your next gig, and you can be flying. You can have a great weekend, but sometimes that can backfire in the fact that you can get complacent. You know what I mean? So, like, say for example, I'm not going to mention names because he's a mate of mine, but he would tell this story himself. But there's a story about, there's loads of these stories, but it's coming about a certain comedian who was on stage at, let's say it was Leeds, because it was Leeds. It was either Jongleurs or Highlight, whichever one it was, because it was the same room. It was a great bloody room. But on the Friday night, absolutely smashed it. They could have been made the mayor of Leeds. You know what I mean? The audience metaphorically picked that comedian up and took them out into the streets partying on the shoulders. You know what I mean? And then the next night, within 5 minutes, it had all gone to shit. And he had to like walk off stage with like security being quite close nearby because they wanted his fucking neck. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that he was complacent. Sometimes it could not be the comedian's fault, but you never bloody know. You never bloody know what's going to happen in this business. So you've always got to be on it, you know. And there are times as well, like where it's difficult because, you know, you can drive to a gig and all this personal shit could be going on, or the stuff in your head can get to you, and then you can walk on stage and smash the gig. Or it might not, because like you've put all your onus on doing your job and doing that gig. But that's the weird thing about our sort of line of work as well, is that all this personal shit can be going on. Whatever's going on in our lives could be going on. In fact, a good friend of mine recently, when there was a comedy circuit, I think he found out, he was emceeing a gig and he found out literally an hour before he was going on stage that a relative of his had passed away, quite a close relative. But, you know, maybe like the fact he was at a gig and he was emceeing it, that was, you know, it was his job, but it was in a way a bit of therapy because he could escape then for the next couple of hours after just finding out that horrible news. But I mean, it's a difficult thing. What can you really do in that situation? You know, unless you've taken that news and it's affected you very badly that you can't possibly gig, then a situation can be worked out with the comedians who are there. But can I tell you on that point, actually, something that did happen to me in 2008? This is going back to my 2012 show, Insane, which was my first hour at Edinburgh, which was all about mental health and my actual mental health journey, if you like. So 2008, I was gigging a lot. So when I did say gig as much as you can, if your body allows it to. Because I was gigging far too much. I was gigging 5 nights a week when I lived in London. But the Thursday, Friday, Saturday gigs were, you know, the proper paid gigs, and things were going really well. And I got my first ever MCing gig for Jongleurs up in Nottingham, which back then, this was like 2008, so Jongleurs were still booming. And I'd started getting booked for more weekends for them. I was actually supposed to do my first hour in Edinburgh that year, 2008. And about 2 weeks before, let's say, it was the end of March, that was it. I was in Glasgow, Jongleurs. Had a great weekend, and all through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, storming it every night, and it just went to my head. I remember having a conversation, and this was in my Edinburgh show about it. So I used to book the Fortnight Club in London, which is a new material night on a Monday for established comedians. It was in Islington at the time. And Tony Law used to be a regular. You know Tony Law, Canadian comedian.
Heard of him.
Yeah.
Great comedian. And just having this conversation on the phone, and I knew something was up, but this had never experienced me. I've never experienced this before. I was actually naturally high on, you know, and I was getting, that ego was getting out of control. I was on the phone to him, and all I'd wanted was Tony to confirm that he was coming to the gig on Monday because I needed to work out a running order. And this was something like the day before or something, or on the day. And I think I had a couple of dropouts, so I was really stressed. I was trying to work out some other things, but I was hardly sleeping. And I remember saying to Tony, right, bear in mind that I was grateful for the gigs, but let's just put this in perspective. It was only Glasgow Jongleurs, right? I said to Tony Law on the phone, I went, Tony, I've not got time for this. I'm playing with the big boys these days. So Tony's response to that was, fuck off. But anyway, about 5 minutes later,
little boys.
Yeah, 5 minutes later, he messaged me and just went, "Are you stressed, man?" I mean, not in that voice because you couldn't text in his accent, but yeah, it was fine. We were still friends after that, but it was just like little bits like that were out of character. And then when it came to doing the Nottingham gig, I'd cancelled quite a few gigs because I wasn't sleeping. I was doing weird stuff, as in wandering around the house at 3 a.m. Phoning my, well, I was married at the time. I was phoning my ex-wife's mother-in-law at 3 a.m. in the morning, as you do, but just phoning her up as if it was a normal conversation, like, "Hiya, Karen, you all right?" You know, at 3 a.m.
I thought he was going to say Babe Station, but the mother-in-law.
Yeah. There you go. It's not technically a mother-in-law joke. It's more like an anecdote, but I'll take it. But yeah, obviously something wasn't quite right. So we went through, myself and my wife at the time, Leanne, we went through my diary and we cancelled gigs and kept certain ones in that we delved to be like, well, we'll keep those because not the more important, but obviously they're the bigger gigs. We'll keep them in the diary for now. So I went all the way to Nottingham. In those days, they put you up in a Holiday Inn, rock and roll.
Yeah.
And on a Thursday as well. And 2 hours before I was due on stage, I was in my hotel room. Now, bear with me. I'm not directly telling this story from the Edinburgh show. Insane, but it was in there. But I was, for some reason, bare-chested, but had my trousers on, but no socks. Right? And I remember that distinctly, because it's a funny image for a start. But I was on the phone to Julia, the Chamberlain, the booker at the time. And I said to her, "Julia, I feel really unwell. I don't think I can do the gig." And she said something like along the line, "What do you mean, Kevin? Who am I going to get now at this short notice?" And then I started having what I thought were heart palpitations. Turns out, in hindsight, I was having a panic attack. Never had a panic attack before. And Julie's on the phone to me going, "Kevin, what's going on? You sound like you're having a heart attack." And then I started thinking, right, she said I'm having a heart attack. I must be having a heart attack. So I phoned 999, as you do. And then I remember literally because I don't know whether anyone's actually been in that position where you had to phone 999 when it's a possibly life-endangering moment, but they keep you on the phone to make sure, and advise you.
Yeah.
So I had to keep the hotel room door open. Anyone walking past must have had a bloody clue what's going on, and they're bare-chested. With no socks on, mind. And the paramedics came. It only felt like maybe 2 minutes, could have been longer. And they walked in, and I clearly wasn't having a heart attack because they just stood there and talked to me, like, trying to placate
you a comedian?
Exactly. That's the conversation. They said, "Why have you phoned us, Kevin?" Right, and then I immediately started calming down. I just looked at him, just went, "I'm a comedian." And they were like, "Right." I said, "Yeah, I'm on in 2 hours." I said, "Thanks for your help. I can get you free tickets." Right? Anyway, they took me to the ambulance and did all these tests and found nothing wrong with me physically. But I remember as well, and because I developed psychosis later on, and this might have been the early forms of it. But I remember them checking my eyes with the lights to see if my pupils weren't dilated, whether I'd been taking drugs. And I remember whether this was true or not, because I could have imagined it said this, because a psychosis could have been doing this. One of the paramedics said, "Any pills or potions?" Right. So which I thought, right, I best not answer this, because this might be a trick question. And he might be trying to catch me out. And I might have actually taken drugs. I don't know. You know what I mean? So I didn't answer, and I was just like there going like, "Don't say anything." Like, self-editing him. He had a little voice was saying, "Don't. He might be a policeman in disguise." It was just all sorts of weird stuff going on. So that led on to like basically 2 months of psychosis, really, psychotic episodes and all sorts, and then deep depression.
What does that mean, Kevin? That word,
Say again. Sorry, mate.
I've heard that word, but what does it mean, and what did it mean?
Oh, yeah.
Psychosis.
Psychosis, then, for those, because the word psychotic sounds fucking scary, doesn't it? Right. The amount of horror films you might have seen, or scenarios where the word psychotic killers on the loose and stuff like that. It's actually the wrong terminology. It's actually what they mean is psychopathic. there's a difference between psychosis and being psychopathic. But psychosis is mainly hallucinations, but they can affect all 5 senses. So, you know, say if you, like now I'm just sat on a chair with a cushion on it, which just so you know. But I've been sat on this chair quite a while. It's some of the only comfort I've got left. No, but like I've been sat on this quite a while, and like I'm just saying, right, and this is my own fault because I've been twittering on, is I've got quite a sore ass. Now, the transmitters to the brain, whatever terminology it is, might think, oh right, I'm sat on, you know, an uncomfortable seat. You know what I mean? And then they might start thinking, oh, why is this seat feel warm? You know what I mean? And then like, have you ever been like, for example, in a car, right, where they've got heated car seats?
Yeah.
Or has anyone owned cars? Heated car seats. Right. The first time I was in one of them, right, I don't know whether you were saying, because it was obviously a cold day, that's where it was on. I thought I'd pissed myself. Right. It's that sort of thing. It's like you know, your brain can tell you stuff that's not actually happening, but you say again, mate.
Sometimes you have.
Yes, yeah, and I definitely did. You know, when I was actually sectioned, there's more to that. But no, but what my point is that you can hallucinate in all ways. Like I was seeing so many things, but I was thinking things. Like say a strong smell, like say like someone chopping onions could smell like an overpowering like sulfuric like chemical because it is sulfur that's contained in it. Just everything's heightened. So it's like you're basically on some sort of hallucinogenic drug, 24 hours. Yeah. So, but also you can have delusions, like delusions of grandeur, and again the opposite effect of like when you're in your lowest, you can like think that everyone's out to get. The other thing you get is frames of reference where you listen to the radio, and about you might have been thinking about, and all of a sudden you start thinking that person is talking about you.
Yeah.
Paranoia.
Yeah. Severe paranoia. Yeah. So, funny enough, as I just said that, I can only see Ben on the screen now. The other two of you have just disappeared as soon as you started talking about paranoia.
Yeah, we did that. Deliberately did it.
Messing with you.
Yeah.
So I suffered with that. And even like stuff like when I was actually in hospital, I was I would have been a day patient. When I was living in London, I was a day patient at Edgware. And, they try to encourage you to do things like art and craft.
Yes.
And things like that. And there was this one day where the subject of Picasso came up in the art and craft. And one of the other patients was looking at this Picasso painting going, look at this. This guy's clearly on drugs. Right? About Picasso. Right? So in the car on the way home, whether this happened or not, it could have been the psychosis, right? And then we had the radio on, and someone was talking about works of art on the radio, and Picasso came up, and I was in there going, right, they're in the car, they're listening. Those little tenuous things that you think, shit, this is really happening when it clearly isn't, but because you're not thinking rationally, it's crazy, literally.
So how did you get away from that? Is there tablets for you taking pills, or was it?
Yeah, there was medication. In the end, I mean, like, I don't want to sound like a middle class wanker because I was helped out like this, but in the end, because obviously the waiting list, and I'm sure it's even worse now, the waiting list for cognitive therapy on the NHS was really, really long, and I didn't actually see anyone through the NHS for that. So I was so like, well, for want of a better word, I was a bit fucked. That it was my parents and a few other family members helped me out, and because I'm in showbiz as well, went to the Priory only as an outpatient. So, but I only had about maybe 4 or 5 sessions with a brilliant counsellor who actually specialised in working with people who work in the performing arts, if you like, in showbiz. Like she'd actually not that this was on the CV and given, but she had been the counsellor for quite a lot of well-known people, and it was all about without giving away too much for free. But this is what this podcast is all about. Helping people. It's all about like separating if I could just talk about myself in the third person.
Go on, Craig David.
Yeah, separating Kevin the comedian or Kevin the performer to Kevin the person, because sometimes the comedian performer can sabotage, the person,
Right.
where the ego again overtakes.
Yeah.
So it was all about like separating those two things, like, and then like when the council members were saying to me like talk to me about Kevin the comedian, then talk to me like wax lyrical, go on, like a bit like the thing we were saying about selling yourself. So I sat there for a bit and then I started to like enjoy what I was saying and like going, oh yeah, I remember that, because I've not done a gig for about 4 months at this stage. I'd missed that sort of like hit you get from storming a gig. Not that every gig, of course, went like that, especially not the one in Nottingham. But yes. But yeah, then she said, "Oh right, now tell me about Kevin the person," and then it was like really bloody difficult, and then I was trying to like be honest as I could, but yeah, that's when all your fragilities come out. But that's what it was getting to, was like why is this been caused?
Yeah.
So in regards to that, then I'm only thinking out loud, but
Yeah,
the kind of comedian that talks very openly about themselves, and I always say about Simon Amstel on here, but the perfect kind of one, Simon Amstel, who speaks very, very, anything that goes wrong in his life, he shares it totally openly, or seems to on stage. Would you think that from a mental health point of view, from what you've experienced, might be a bit dangerous? Because obviously it sounds a bit dangerous anyway, but from what you went through there, he is very much sharing a persona, but his own experiences to great depth. Do you think that's sometimes you think that might be a dangerous thing to do as well?
quite possibly. I mean, like, I'm just going to take the conversation back to me. I mean, just as an example, because I've not to drop in names, because we already have, but like, I mean, I've gigged with Simon Amstel 2 or 3 times, but quite in the early days, like he was already known as a presenter on like E4 and stuff like that, but he wasn't, he sort of like, he wasn't doing what he does now then. He was doing routines about his life, but not as in depth as it is now. And as well, like the stuff that I did in the Insane show was very in depth and almost like me literally bearing my soul and telling strangers intimate stories about myself. But it was more of a case, and I hope that this is what Simon's sort of aim is with the stuff he's doing, is that he's probably trying to say that, look, it's okay to talk about these things and like to talk about your weaknesses, and especially as a man, because as we're always reminded of, that male suicide is is very high, and a lot of men do hide these sort of things, and I was I've come back. I came from a background as well, and this is not pointing a finger of blame at anyone. It's just the way that it was, that like boys didn't show emotions, men didn't. Men are supposed to be the strong people who don't cry and stuff like that, and really it's you can't blame generations for that, because that's just how things were. But so right, without sounding too like, oh, you take this message with you, but I think in a way that if you do show your emotions and you do cry, you're probably a much stronger man.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
You're dealing with it, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's worse. I mean, that's a reason why. One of the reasons why I did suffer with psychosis and have a breakdown and depression, because I hid those things. I didn't talk about those things. So
the guess is, what advice would you give to a younger you that's going through issues, whatever they may be? Well, what advice would you have given to you when you were going through stuff? Not necessarily in that episode, maybe when you were even younger and you were struggling with stuff or whatever, but what do you think is good advice to young people out there?
Well, because I'm just thinking about the mistakes I've made in my past, and thinking it's quite easy to advise the younger me, but also I don't want to sound like one of those boring older people, like when we were younger, and then saying, oh, what, don't go out and party. I mean, you certainly shouldn't be doing that now in this climate, but yeah, just look after your body. That's what I would say, because I mean, not that I was Not that I was. Well, I don't think I've ever been a full blown. I've not relied on alcohol. Let's say I don't think I've ever been an alcoholic, but I've certainly delved with my what's the word? Dabbled with my alcoholism. Let's say, especially when I reached the age of around 18. I mean, I started drinking when I was about 15. Because back in those days you could get away going the off license and going to the pub and going, just have a pint of lager or Theakston's. What's Theakston's? I don't know why that did that voice, but anyway. In fact, I did have a routine about like when I first started drinking, because I was below the age of 18, I'd walk into a pub and have to try and act a bit more blokey in order to get served. I mean, and it was more like, all right, mate, how you doing? Yeah, I don't know why I went Cockney, but all right, yeah, 2 pints of Stella, you know what I mean? Woo, tits. Now that I'm older, I actually prefer going to sometimes go down to gay bars in the gay village with my mates, and sometimes they don't let you in because they think that you're there to cause bother, so you have to go up and go, oh, you're playing Nicki Minaj? Oh,
So you think healthy body, healthy mind as well?
Oh yeah, and things go hand in hand. What's great about my other half, Bexy, is she tells me off for eating badly. She doesn't tell me off. It's only because she's in the next room. But no, we cook together, and it's mainly vegetables, because that's all we're allowed, vegetables.
Is that her laughing? No.
Yeah, that's her laughing. Yeah. No, what I mean is it's veg heavy. If she wasn't here right now, I'd just be eating fried chicken, right, out of a bucket. Right, not even a KFC bucket, just a dirty bucket that I found. Yeah, and just drinking olive oil. That's what I'd be doing.
What is it about guys that when the missus goes out, when my missus goes out, as soon as the door clicks, I'm like eating chocolate, playing PlayStation, like just doing bad things to myself. Like, what? Why do we regress?
Really?
Yeah.
What are you saying, Paddy? Do you still do it when she's there?
Yeah, it's terrible when I've got the remote in the hand to keep changing the channels. It's I try not to, but I just find I think you're right. Because me and obviously my missus, that cooking together, it's quite romantic as well. Was when your hands go to touch the timer on the microwave when it gets to 0, it's just lovely. It's a lovely feeling.
Especially those edible knickers.
Okay, Missy, just to say though,
no knickers are edible.
And you've tried them all.
just to point out though, now if you noticed that Andy's not in spotlights, he's actually in a van.
Yeah.
Which is why we call him the abductor. So that's where he films it from, and we believe there's definitely a backstory to that van.
Right, divorce. That's the backstory. You don't want
that. Where is that van?
Outside my house.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's as vague as he'll give it. You see, he won't tell us anymore.
Yeah. I've got 4 kids, not in the van. Don't worry.
Don't believe him.
Do you know your neighbours well?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, they don't like me, but we know them well.
No, I was going to say, because if they weren't, because I mean, I know some of my neighbours by sight, but if I had a van and I was outside, at this moment when this coronavirus is going on, it'd be really suspicious. Thinking, especially, luckily, I've not got the psychotic. I'm not going through a period of psychosis at the moment, but if there was a van outside my house with a man getting in and out of it occasionally, hearing voices coming from inside it, I'd be a bit worried.
Got Picasso pictures in the back.
It's a refrigerated van.
Is it?
Meet up. When do you meet up? Yeah. Bloody hell. Right, we're into my van again.
That's what he says to the kids.
Get in the back. No,
you've got to let me this out.
These guys will jump in with questions as well. I just wanted to jump in with there is a question that we ask all of our guests is what do you do when life goes shit? What is your coping mechanisms? Whether it be hobbies, interests, what do you do?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm really missing right now, but this is because, I'm missing this as well, is because we were supposed to be doing the Edinburgh Festival this year, as everyone else was involved with comedy, that was going. Our plans have been shelved this year because we did the Leicester Comedy Festival, myself and Bexy, with our show, and then we were supposed to do Glasgow, of course. That wasn't officially cancelled, but we decided, because that's when all the social distancing measures started to come in, that a lot of shows were being cancelled, and we decided it was too risky to go anyway, so we had to cancel that one. Brighton went, Coventry, and of course Edinburgh and others. Plus I was supposed to be doing, because dusting off the old acting boots and doing Shakespeare this summer, before I did Edinburgh. I was going to be doing King Lear in Ludlow, outside in the castle, which would have been amazing. So I want to get back into this, because I was saying about like plans being shelved, but it's not as if I can do this at the moment either because of the situation, and that's wrestling. Because some people just go to the gym, but I obviously would like to go to the gym as well, but can't do that. Could do that at home, I suppose, but I find it it's very difficult to motivate yourself, isn't it? I don't know whether you guys do any sort of working out at home, but it's very difficult rather than going to a gym. As soon as you get there, you're forcing yourself to do something. So wrestling, it's not only great fun when you get the fitness up, but when you're in there and you're wrestling, you're forgetting about everything, all your personal shit.
What kind of wrestling do you do?
We're talking about professional wrestling, so not Olympic style grappling. We're talking about The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, bouncing off ropes and doing DDTs.
Didn't you do when you were emceeing at the Salty Dog? Didn't you go? But you'd just gone back to wrestling, and hadn't you been slammed? I can't remember. You told the story on the stage.
I'd possibly be. Oh yes. Sorry, was that this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So back in January, of course, before even all this situation started, there's not a huge amount of gigs, and there's a bit of downtime in sort of our line of work, if you like, showbiz. There wasn't much going on, and I'd been toying with the idea of going back because I actually made my debut in a charity match back in November 2018, and then I continued training up till sort of May last year, and then again I did Shakespeare in the summer, and then I did a tour up till the end of August, like a panto show in the summer, as you do, and then when I came back I got really busy with comedy, with other things, so I just stopped doing it, but I missed it, but I threw myself into doing more stand-up and working with Bexy on the Tuesday night at the social club. So the wrestling I put on the back burner. But January I went back to train at the new Future Shock Performance Centre in Salford, or is it Manchester? You see, it's on the border. But anyway, with Sam Bailey, not the singer from X Factor. I don't know. Anyway, it was great, but I'd been away from the wrestling ring for 7 months. Now, there's a little peek behind the curtain for any listeners, but I've got to whisper this. I don't know. I don't know whether I can say this, but let's just say that wrestlers talk to each other during the match, right? I don't mean they say, what are you doing after this? Well, sometimes they might, right? But we were doing, a drill, a warm-up drill, if you like, but involved wrestling, where you get into the ring as the attacking wrestler. So you jump underneath, you sort of slide in underneath the ropes, and then the wrestler in the ring, as you throw a clothesline at them, they'll duck, and then they'll tell you the move they're going to give you, right?
Never.
Yeah. Sorry to break your heart there. Oh. So this particular wrestler, Ethan, who's a great wrestler, but obviously he's in the moment. He's not thinking, right, well, Kev's not wrestled for 7 months, so I'll give him an easy one. Like thinking he was going to say back elbow or something, right? I run into the ring. The first move I take after 7 months, I go to clothesline him. He ducks, he goes suplex, right? Now, if you don't know what a suplex is, basically you get picked up like from your sort of standing position. You get picked up and you basically do well, it's not even 180, is it? It is almost, well, it's a flip bump. What's called a flip bump. From your standing position, you sort of do a forward flip in the air and then land on your back and your feet at once. Okay. So I've had to just my instincts kicked in and my muscle memory has gone, right, you're going to give me a suplex, but I've not trained for 7 months, right? So I hit the ropes and then I think, right, I'm going to take the suplex. I put my hand in the correct position. He takes my arm. I go over, I'm in the air and I'm thinking, shit, and hit the mat. And it hurts because I've not taken a bump, as they're called, for 7 months. But it goes all right. But I got out the ring and I instantly felt like my right hand hip just lock. And I was just I was hobbling around going, bloody hell, that hurt. So I had to just sit out for the next 5 minutes. Because I was just, again, not match fit. So, but yeah, it was.
Who wins?
Say again, mate.
How do you decide who wins? How does that work?
Well, it's determined by storylines.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not giving away too many secrets here anymore because, kayfabe, as they call it, where the secrets of wrestling, it's sort of disappeared now due to the invention of social media. So years ago, you'd be if you asked a wrestler, oh, by the way, is it fake? Or is it, is it predetermined or whatever? They'd be like, I don't know what you mean. And it used to be that, oh, you need to protect the business, because if we get found out. But not anymore. I mean, wrestling fans are more intelligent than they're given credit for. Most of them. I mean, some aren't. I mean, look at them. No, but I'm joking. But no, it's storylines because when I did the charity show, by the way, I'm undefeated. I've had one wrestling match. We won it. I found out I was in a tag team with a couple of other. Well, there were 4 professional wrestlers in that match, and then there was me and Louise. Not Louise, who was in Eternal.
Red Path.
Louise, who. She was on a tag team with me and Joey Hayes, professional wrestler, when we were against 3 other professional wrestlers. And the storyline was that we were going to win. And we were just given that. We were told 7 minutes. The match is going to take place over 7 minutes. You go away and work out what you want to do. You're going to win by pinfall. Which, for those who might not know what I'm talking about, means pinning your opponent's shoulders to the mat for three counts. So we went away, and of course, professional wrestlers worked with us to decide the outcome of the match. And it was the most flipping fun I've ever had in front of the public. I say the public as if I'm Whitney Houston. I don't know. No, I don't know why I went for Whitney Houston as the first obvious thing. Right. Whitney Houston wrestling, that would have been a thing, wouldn't it? Yeah. But yeah, no, it was great fun. It was great fun. It seemed to go on, in the match itself seemed to go on longer, in the ring. Do you know what I mean? It felt like it was going on longer, and it felt like there was much more, the sort of what was called the theatrics, the mechanics behind a wrestling match going on, because constantly the wrestlers are talking to each other because you plan a match, but things might go wrong. Things, might have to be done on the fly. But you're always reminded because some of you might forget what's next. You know what I mean? So one of the guys who was on the opposing teams, he goes under the gimmick of Big Joe. He's about 5'6". He's great, and he just he was brilliant all the way through. He was playing the heel, the bad guy, if you like, where he just was this really annoying character, but he just what they called the match. So he was just telling me just slow down or do this, whilst we're in the match, just to make it look, to tell the story better, because that's what wrestling mainly is storytelling. And it's great fun, and I was the fittest I've ever been doing it, so I'd love to go back to it.
Yeah, you can sense the passion. You can.
Yeah, definitely.
Sense the passion.
I wouldn't be brave enough to do it. Honestly, my back couldn't take it. But nobody could lift me. So,
Ah, well, you say that, Paddy. Next salty dog.
Suplex him.
Yeah. Yeah, tell you what, you rush the stage, right? Throw a clothesline, I'll duck, and I'll tell you the move you're going to take.
Yeah, and you'll know it's me because I don't remember many people storming the stage.
The little tag that we always add onto that question as well is, when stuff goes shit in life, when you're feeling low, anything like that, who is it you confide in?
Well, I mean, I'm very lucky in the fact that I have Bexy, because she's very understanding. But funny enough, now I'll tell you this, and I'm sure he won't mind doing this, but obviously I mentioned Mick earlier on. I see a lot less of Mick Ferry these days. It's just because it's the way it's worked out. We don't tend to, unless there's something I don't know about, but I was going to say we don't tend to gig together these days as much. But yeah, we just haven't bumped into each other that much at gigs. I mean, I think over the last 3 years, and plus I've been doing quite a bit of acting, so I've been away from the circuit, a little bit here and there. But yeah, I've only probably gigged with Mick about 3 times over the past 3 years, whereas I saw more of him when he used to live in London, because we did the Big Value show in Edinburgh back in 2004 when I first started out. So he came stay with me quite a lot. So I saw him all the time in London when he came stay. But yeah, last night, because I listened to your podcast, listened to Mick, and I realised how much I missed him just from listening to him, because it just reminded me of the times where, because he was there for me in 2008 when I had the breakdown, because he, funnily enough, he turned up at the hospital when I was actually taken into the general hospital first, because they didn't know what was wrong with me. They didn't realise it was a mental health issue. They thought it was some sort of infection. And I remember I was in and out of consciousness, and I woke up and Mick Ferry was stood at the end of my bed, and it definitely wasn't a hallucination. And I just remember he was stood there wearing his Trilby style hat. He's probably if he listens to this or whatever, he goes, "Well, a Trilby hat. It was a fedora, you twat." No, but I remember him just stood at the end of the bed going, "You'll be all right, mate. You'll be all right. Yeah, it's all right, mate. You know what I mean? You'll be all right." And that's he was just being himself. He wasn't putting on like a persona or anything like that. So yeah. So yeah, I texted him last night and just said, "I'm just listening to the podcast you did, this Men Don't Talk, and I'm on it. I'm recording it tomorrow. So I just wanted to let you know, mate, because I know he's had some bad news recently and stuff as well. So I just said to him, which is obviously part of this podcast, is that I miss you. I hope you're all right. We should really get together after all this coronavirus crap, because life is too short, and you do need to talk to your mates, be with your mates. But yeah, there's some other comedian mates of mine, and also mates that away from comedy who are confiding. Mike Newell, comedian, he's a good mate. We've had a few chats about this sort of thing. We've been there for each other. Yeah, there's quite a few as well, and good mates was at uni with and things like that. There's those sort of mates as well that you haven't seen for years, and just because life gets carried away, where all of a sudden in a crisis you can actually text them or message them, and then the true friend will get back to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if they don't,
did Mick Ferry reply?
He did indeed, yeah.
Just checking.
And he's a man of few words, so I'm glad he did.
You'll be all right. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he sent a video of him just going, "You'll be all right. You'll be all right."
His thing was funny before testing the 5G.
Yeah.
Have you not seen it? It's
with the bread.
Yeah, it's really clever.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a funny. So Mick prides himself on being the king of the wind-ups. Again, when the conversation might get serious, off stage, and then he'll throw in a little story as if it's a fact. I remember after I'd recovered from my psychotic episode. Maybe a couple of years after, I remember being down in London because I'd moved away from London, and I think I must have been down gigging, and we'd met up, and then we ended up. This sounds more rock and roll than it is, but we ended up at this house party in those crazy days, and it got to that point in the morning where, because this is having a drink with Mick, you can't just have a couple of short ones. Well, he's mellowed now, but I remember him saying to me it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. He's going, so is everything all right now, Kev? You know, feeling better in the head and everything. And we're having a nice chat and stuff like that. And he goes, yeah, because I'll be honest with you, Kev, I have some dark thoughts sometimes. And I was like, all right, about anything in particular? He just went, murder. And then obviously burst out laughing. So unless he's very clever, unless that's the truth, and he's been hiding it all these years. I don't know. It's funny. I don't know whether he ever had this as a routine, but I remember him saying to me that, like, I'm sure my neighbours, right, because he's from Oldham and he means proper Oldham. He says, I'm sure my neighbours think I'm a burglar. So I come back at like 5 o'clock in the morning carrying a bag because I've been gigging, you know.
So what does the future hold then, Kev? I know we're on pause at the minute, but is there anything you want to promote for future or anything like that?
Well, so myself and Bexy have been making these sketches and putting them on Your Dad's Mum Facebook page. Which
I'm on that now, following that.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
I hope I've not bigged it up too much now, but there's only a handful of sketches on there, but we want to create more because we've been like a bit distracted this past week with other things. That sounded like an innuendo. It shouldn't have been. No, we've been distracted, but we've been working on other things like scripts and stuff like that. But we've already said that like we want to continue making sketches because like it's early days with that because we were getting some momentum going with, you know, like being nominated for best debut show at Leicester. We were really happy with the way the show was going. We were looking forward to Glasgow. We had ideas of like adapting and changing the show. We might do a Tuesday night at Social Club Facebook virtual quiz at some point as our characters. Yeah. You know, because it's an opportunity as well now for performers to, if you're going to do something a bit different, because I mean it's great. I love quizzes, and we've played quite a few online quizzes since the lockdown. But I think if you're a performer, you know, if you can do something a bit more niche, and especially as us now being this like double act, like if we can get some sort of following through Facebook and social media doing our characters, then hopefully when we come back to doing a live show, they might want to come and see the live show.
I think you'd be great as a podcast. I think you're a natural on air. Like I'm sure you're a natural comment I've not actually seen, but yeah, I think you'd be, you know, as a couple, there's some really good couples ones out there that a lot of people listen to. But I think you'd be great, you know, doing a bit as a sort of a podcast, something as well. But
well, thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
No, I've always
you both on here.
Yeah.
Both on the
that'd be ace. Yeah.
Thanks.
What are you doing next week?
In character.
She's booked up, she said.
No, it was fucked up.
She's got a gig in the vestibule. She's doubling up with a hat stand. No, we haven't got a hat stand or a vestibule, by the way. We've got a masonette. No,
posh.
What was I going to say? It sounds posh, doesn't it? Yeah. Masonette.
What's it mean? What does that mean?
French.
It means small house.
Yeah. Literally translated, it means small house. Yeah.
I do feel sorry for anyone in a flat at the minute. Like I know you are, Ben, there, but I mean, having a garden helps me at the minute. I definitely say.
There's communal gardens here.
Is there? Right.
Yeah, I went for a run earlier and sat out in the sun for it.
Have you, Ben? Have you seen any of these? What you call COVIDiots? Has anyone like been arranging large groups to sit out in those communal gardens?
No. I've only seen. Well, there was a woman walking up and down the garden earlier. She was doing laps of it just for her exercise. She said, "I'm doing 10 today." She did 5 yesterday. She's doing 10 today. So
keep us updated. Keep us updated.
Yeah.
When you say laps, was she actually moving quite quick, or was she just one?
Walking.
Did she have a Zimmer frame? That'd be impressive.
It's only about 20-meter laps.
If I was to ask you one, there's a last one.
Yeah.
We have talked about greatest fear as men quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Could you open up to some degree, even just lightly, about Have you ever thought about what your greatest fear is in life? Have you ever, when you say you had panic attacks and stuff like that?
Yeah.
What was that related to? What is the fear?
Well, I mean, I don't think that the reason I had that panic attack was not related to what my greatest fear is now. But I think the greatest fear. Whoa, this is deep, isn't it? I'm still talking about the question, by the way. I think, obviously, with what's going on in the world right now, I mean, I've never been paranoid or like I've never been a hypochondriac or like worried about, getting a terminal illness or stuff like that, because if that sort of thing happens, then, I'm not saying that you should approach life and put things down to fate, but obviously at the moment what I'm worried about is I've got quite a few older relatives, but also I'm not getting any younger. In about 10, 15 years, I'm suddenly going to think, oh shit, where's all that gone? Do you know what I mean? Where's life got? What I'm talking about is I don't want to waste the opportunities I've got now. But like whether it's stuff to do with Tuesday night at the social club, getting these sitcoms done, going back to wrestling, trying to do something through that, taking advantage of it before I get too old, really. Because also you don't know what the future brings, or whether, with this coronavirus thing happening, I do try to ignore it. Before this coronavirus thing stopped happening, I just ignored the news, and now I'm flipping obsessed with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like I think if you're like there's certain people I know, I'm not going to say they are in case they listen to this podcast, but before this happened,
It won't be.
they constantly I've got the news on, like they're listening to the news all the time, or they check the news first thing in the morning, and even if you think you're not, you're influenced by the propaganda that might be within that particular news outfit, a news agency, whoever it is, and also it always fixates on normally doom and gloom, and that's all it is at the moment, and it can get into your head. So I've ignored those sort of things and just like tried to like live in my own head because again I was watching too much of that stuff back in the days when I was suffering with psychosis. In fact, on that point, I just say this: when I was living in London, and again I was watching too much of the news. Because obviously the digital changeover happened back then, or way before that. So now virtually every TV is digital. Like when you turn the TV on and it might be just on the normal TV channel, but you have to press the AV to get it to the channel to tune in to watch the digital TV, yeah? There is a point to this, don't worry. Back in London when I was suffering from psychosis, for some reason, it was on Channel 10 when it was like on standby, the screen, where it was just a blank screen, before I pressed the AV button to get the actual broadcast for digital. And I thought that it was tuned in to number 10 Downing Street. Because that's how deluded I was. That I was that important to national security. So what I'm saying is, if you're watching the news so much, and especially with all these press conferences from number 10, I mean, bless anyone right now who is suffering from psychosis or anything like that, because it must be bloody awful. Like, I had a mate of mine who, unfortunately, is no longer with us. He died a few years ago. He's one of my best mates in comedy. Stuart Hudson, his name was. Brilliant comedian. And unfortunately, he died of sepsis, blood poisoning. No one's aware what that is. Yeah. I mean, I was heartbroken. He was one of my best mates in London, and because I'd moved away, again we hadn't been in touch as much as we normally had been because living around the corner from him, and he suffered with a bit of OCD. Well, I say a bit of OCD. He was very much very worried about germs. He was fixated with them. All the time. I don't know whether you've ever met anyone that's, before, like, not even in this climate as we are now with coronavirus, he'd always be worried about like touching door handles and like the bell on a bus to make it stop and stuff like that. He'd always be with his elbow and things like that. So, in this situation now, he'd be you know, he'd be so worried about everything. It'd be horrible. It'd be living hell. So, you know, if anyone is right now going through those sort of things, all I'm saying is I sympathise. You know, if there's any help or listening to these sort of things or talking to mates, please do it. That's what I'm saying, because I don't know whether it was to do with that, why my mate Stuart started drinking so much, really. But yeah, things literally got on top of him, unfortunately. But it was hilarious. Can I share a couple of his jokes?
Yeah, of course.
Right, now he had a very dark sense of humour, but what I loved about Stuart was the fact that when talking about what we were earlier about that humbleness, but also, you know, the ego, if you like. I just wish he had a bit more of an ego, because he was so humble, he was so talented, he was such a good gag writer that sometimes you didn't realise how good he was. But when he was on it, right, there's a Facebook video somewhere in my memories of him storming it at Jongleurs Camden, which if I find, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
And like something like his opening line is like, "My name's Stuart. I've got a lot of problems. I masturbate a hell of a lot. To be honest with you, it's the only thing that gets me out of the house." I won Miss World last year. I've still got her.
Brilliant.
Yeah. He was a very funny man. Very funny man.
Yeah. Some opening that, innit?
Yeah.
Yeah. That reminds me of, I think I might have talked about it once before. There was one guy that came to one of the nights that I did, and he said he'd never done a gig before in his life. And we were like, right, okay, no, that's fine, you crack on. And he did a joke that I just was like, there's no way you've never done a gig before, or you wrote that joke and that's the first joke you've ever done. And it was just, I've bigged it up too much, but it was a great little joke. It was just, they say that you can learn a lot from someone about the type of porn that they watch. But I'm not fucking gay. You're like, there's no way. It was just killed, and you're like, that's not your first fucking joke ever.
Where was that gig?
Worst comedy night, I think. Well, have you heard the joke before?
No. I was just trying to picture the scene of like, is that the one that they're doing at King's Arms?
Yeah. It was a
Not
busy
anymore.
night. It was a busy night there, yeah.
Yeah. All the comedians and no one else, or?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All the comedians, no one else though,
yeah. No, I mean it's tough to get a crowd in there anyway. But yeah. No, yeah, it's funny when you see comedians who first start off who have got the wrong idea of what stand-up comedy is. I heard a story recently about he was a bit of an older guy who had no idea about plagiarism, so thought he'd just go along and do 5 minutes of other people's jokes that he's heard, including some Michael McIntyre routines and Peter Kay and stuff like that. You know, well, say what you want about Peter Kay. I've heard stories about some of his might not be his, but
yeah, I've heard similar. Yeah.
But I never said that. If he's listening, I never said that.
They were all mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of it. But thanks very much, Kev. Just remind anyone very quickly again if they want to follow you.
Yeah, it's Your Dad's Mum Comedy on Facebook. We're also on Instagram, but also you can find me on Twitter, which is @Kevin Dewsbury, and Instagram @Kevin Dewsbury Comedy. Super. And the Salty Dog in Northwich. If any of you are ever passing through Cheshire, it's the third Thursday of the month, Kev's Comedy Club, when we're back. Hopefully September. Who knows? We'll see. Stay safe, everybody.
Great.
Brilliant. Can't recommend the Salty Dog high enough. It's absolutely brilliant. And thanks for coming on. Really enjoyed it.
No problem. Thank you so much for the invite. Anytime. I'll be recommending it to other comedians. And if me and Bexy could come back at some point, that'd be amazing.
Great. Superb. Absolutely superb.
Really thanks for being so open and sharing your story, mate, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
No worries. Take care.
Cheers, Kev.
Cheers. Nice one.
See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Set out.
Bye.